gotta track it. I got that. Dang. I gotta make sure this is muted. So then, what do you want them to say in the meantime? What else do I have to go through?
Either AV mute or
What's
no,
it?
just
Oh, I
put it
have
on
the,
the
I have the
presentation.
remote. Where's the
Oh.
remote? No, I don't have the remote.
we'll have another.
That remote. What?
I don't know. I don't know if I have another
Yeah.
Do we have any more batteries? I just put the bad batteries and put on the other one. Maybe.
Yes.
What else, why? We have more of these?
Yeah, more of those. Is that box empty?
Yeah.
Okay. There are some rolling around in the drawer. I don't know how good those are.
Oh, my goodness, this is not fun.
There are other AAA in there. I didn't, I'm gonna check the out.
Double A.
Yeah.
At least.
There we go.
But I have no idea if this is any good, though. It just came out of my drawer.
Oh, the remote itself?
Yes. Why I would keep a bad one? I don't know. But no, I don't know where the back went. It's just a tad bit stressful. See, it's not going to go on my head.
On page one. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. All right. Let's call to order the August 27th, or meeting with Township Board of Education. Meeting is called in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act with adequate notice and providing further posting on county times on May 2nd, 2023. If we get it on the sides. Drive the pledge. For allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. We take roll call, please, James.
Secretary Burns.
Present.
Mrs. Barnes.
Here.
Mrs. Thousand Acquisition. Here. Adam Meyer. Mrs. Miller. Mrs. Morano.
Here.
Mr. Reese. Mrs. McCollum.
Here.
Mr. Billy.
Here. Thank you, James. Welcome, everyone, to our August 2024 meeting. Not surprisingly, not a huge turnout. It is the last week before we start school, which is an exciting time. Hopefully everybody is enjoying the last week of summer. By way of a very brief update on the superintendent search, the board met last night to review resumes and applicants, and we expect to have follow-up interviews in September. And so that's the state of affairs. We expect that we will have the first round of interviews and second round of interviews by the end of September, but more to come on that. So other than that, there's been a lot going on. It's been a busy summer, but I will defer to Mr. Ballmer to give his superintendent's.
Thanks, Mark. Just a brief update. We're obviously getting ready for the start of the school year. A couple of welcome back letters will be coming out from my office to the staff and also to the community. Before the end of the week, I've been spending time this week heading into our buildings, spend time today at South Valley and Roberts, greeting staff, busily in their classroom already, getting things ready. And it's really quite honestly a joy to be around the level of excitement that exists this time of year, the expectation for the kids to come and the work that's being done, leading up to the day when the kids come back, which is next Wednesday. We've been very busy this past summer, continuing our work as it relates to the referendum. You guys have all been very much engaged and involved in that work. I did host a meeting, Megan Zoe's and some of her colleagues.
She never wants to go.
Opportunities, particularly that are also for parents in the community who may not have that in school age children. You know, come out and learn a little bit about the referendum, and how about their children. That's it. The first meeting was held on Thursday at 10 a.m. Sparsely attended, very favorable feedback from the folks that were in attendance. But we anticipate a larger audience this Thursday night at 7 p.m. at the Morristown Library. So I'll be there. Thank you for those board members that came out and support. And we'll continue to host and engage the community in this grassroots method. In addition to some of the other things you've heard me talk about it, but my word that we'll be producing those videos come September with questions, so that folks who dial into our website will have an opportunity to see and hear many of the articles of action and what it is that we need to accomplish and why the timing will be so important at this particular point in Morristown's history. Very eager to get the school year up and started. It's hard to believe that my nearly 2 years of being here is quickly coming to an end, but we'll continue to work very hard right up through the end. And I can assure you we're engaged in involvement as we move forward through that vote for March 11th. So with that, we're back to you. Oh, a couple of presentations. Can you go right to them?
I missed a couple of agenda items, some administrative things. Can I get a motion for the approval of the June 18th executive session, regular session, as well as the July 31st executive session and regular session?
So good. Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Any noes or abstentions? And I will abstain from the June 18th regular session. All right. And with that out of the way, Joe, what's up?
I want to turn the meeting over to Dr. Ben, who has a couple of presentations, reports, graduation, also our state assessment presentation.
Right, if everyone doesn't mind, we'll be set up. So these are our annual series of state assessments that we're going to be going over tonight. This year, the state gives us 60 days in order to present our results publicly. So we're going to do our high school proficiency test results today. We're going to do our multilingual learner access test today, and we're also going to do our class of 2024 graduation report. In the coming months, we will do our NJSLA state assessment for grades 3 through 8, as well as that at the time when we do our state district report and go over some of our college and career readiness assessment. So just as a quick reminder, this is the second year that we have had the New Jersey graduation proficiency assessment in place that counted as a graduation assessment requirement for our 12th graders. For the ELA component of the assessment, it is based on our grade 10 standards, and also the math is a combination of algebra 1 and geometry standards. If you can just quickly remember, the state has gone through a series of, changes to the state assessment requirement for graduation. We had the part, and then we switched over to using grade 9 and grade 10, assessments, for NJSLA, and now they've gone back to a grade 11 assessment, which is the NJGPA, but using, the same set of standards that were previously used for the other districts. In addition to that, the cut score has been adjusted to 725 for both components of the ELA. Students must pass both the ELA component and the math component as two separate measures for graduation. And once they have taken the NJGPA and not met the cut score in 1 year, they take it in grade 11, then they have available to them other pathways. They're able to retake the NJGPA as a 12th grader. They're also able to use alternative tests such as the SAT, ACT, the ACT Placer, and finally they can complete a portfolio appeal process that the district students in preparing that portfolio and submitting to the state. So last year for our class of 2024, we had 315 students who took the ELA assessment and 314 students that took the math assessment. We did not have any 12th graders that needed to take the assessment, and that is in part to the fact that we have a very successful completion rate of the portfolio process. So none of the students in the class of 2024 who had not passed the proficiency exam as an 11th grader, they all were able to meet their requirements through the portfolio. And so these are our results of the 315 students that took the ELA exam. 303 of them, 96%, were graduation ready, meaning they met that cut score of 725 in ELA. And for mathematics, 261 students were graduation ready, which comes up to 83%. And again, the students that were not graduation ready when they took this exam were able to meet their graduation requirements either through an alternative assessment or through the portfolio. When we compare our performance to the state, you can see that last year in ELA, we were at 96%. In 2024, we're at 96.2%, so relatively the same compared to the state performance that ranges in the low 80s. For mathematics, you can see we're at 85% last year, slightly down this year at 83%, but compared to the state, we were only half of all students are meeting that performance requirement or expectation. We also do a breakdown of looking at some of our subgroups. So here we have our economically disadvantaged students. This is for ELA, as well as our students with disability. And you can see that in ELA, compared to the overall average of our students and their peers, there is some decrease. However, when we look at that compared to our NJSLA data last year that we talked about many of the different interventions and supports that we were putting in place, over the last 3 years, we've been able to shrink that gap between students in these subgroups compared to their peers. So this being the second year that we've had this test now in place, we're applying some of those same instructional approaches and measures at the high school level to be able to decrease the gaps in performance. Similarly, you see the same for math. Specifically in math, one of the things that we're doing in addition to making sure that we are revising our in-house assessments so that students have exposure to the same types of assessment questions that focus not only on content, but also on skills and practices. We are exploring some curricular resources that will allow students in our level 1 and our level 2 classes to build foundational skills. And that's an adjustment also to the changes that have come along that we've discussed in curriculum committee about changes to the math students. So we will switch over and talk about our class of 2024 graduation outcomes. There were 317 students total in our graduating class in June. Of those, the overwhelming majority, as I just presented, met their requirement for graduation for assessment through the NJGPA. However, we did have 34 students that completed pathway through a substitute test. And another 15 students that completed either after DLA that completed it through pathway 3, which is the portfolio or building. We did have 3 students who received state and York high school diplomas with alternative requirements as designated through their IEPs. And 0 students were denied graduation for not meeting their assessments. So as I summarized some of the specific intervention strategies that we are using at the high school level when it comes to the graduation proficiency is that we are making adjustments to both our curriculum as well as employing to instructional interventions. This year, we also ran a summer intervention program where students received specific instruction geared towards the test and then had the opportunity over the summer to retest. They also created those graduation portfolio skills. So the students that were in this program are actually grade 11. And we did this the previous year as well. So these are students that are rising seniors who we knew did not meet their graduation requirements. So we're targeting those students for summer intervention. And then in the fall, because we don't get 100% participation over the summer, we do run a class as needed for ELA and math for students that need to take the fall, have an option to take the fall test as well as the 3 physical. And the second part of what we will cover today is the WIDA access testing that we do for our multilingual learners. Very quickly, we talked about before that our English language learners are those who are in the process of learning English. While many of these are immigrants, many of the students come to us from other districts, either here in New Jersey or from across the state. The state has shifted the language to talk about multilingual learners, who it's a strength-based way of looking at students in terms of that they're not only developing proficiency in English and learning English, but they are also continuing to develop proficiency in their home language. And the state has also made this transition, and we are now participating in the New Jersey Seal of Biliteracy. 11th and 12th graders are able to take a state assessment. It's a 4-hour monthly rigorous assessment that looks at all 4 modalities of language. This year we had 12 students who received the seal of biliteracy, meaning that they are proficient in not only English but in another language. And we actually had 2 of those 12 who got 2 seals of biliteracy, so they are actually trilingual. And that was across 9 different languages that they outside of. So as we talked about before, in the last 3 years, we've seen a significant increase in the number of multilingual eligible enrollment. And so that access test is a test that we administer yearly to all students who are eligible for ESL services. And it covers these different domains. Students get an overall score as it's broken down here in number 4. And any student who is below a 4.5, we consider to be in program, and they receive ESL instruction as well as additional supports in their content areas in order to develop proficiency as well as participate in reading level learning. Once they test at 4.5 or higher across the domains, then we exit them through the program. But we do continue to monitor those students in case they need to be reentered into the program for 2 years. Right. So when they take that test, we classify them into groups or cohorts. So they're either entering, emerging, and developing in the earlier stages of their language acquisition, and then they move to expanding, bridging, and reaching. So when students get that 4.5, they are typically here in the expanding range, and they can be supported through tier 1 support in the general ed classroom. when they are in these three areas of proficiency, then they are receiving specific ESL instruction from the ESL certified teacher. And as you can see, this is the distribution by percentage across the district. The overwhelming majority of the students, the 70 students that we have are here in the developing and the emerging areas. And so a lot of the work that we've done instructionally is meant to support students in these areas. However, you can see that we do have a breakdown by grade level. What you see here in blue is our K-5 population. And so we have a range there for the K-5 where you can see that we have some students in the expanding grade. So our average score for the district last year was 3.4, last year was 3.5. To add some context to this, at the K-5 where we have the majority of our students, this year we were able to exit the highest number of students out of the program. So it shows that the instruction that we're offering at the K-5 level is working to move students quickly, through the domains and into our general ed setting. And to that end, just to highlight some of the things that we worked on within our programming. Last year we had an initiative for all of our teachers to receive a PD series on supporting multilingual learners. We did this in response to the fact that we had such a dramatic increase in our numbers. And we partnered with Rowan University to provide that professional development. And we also, at the K-3 level, Roberts last year was our one building that had ESL programming. And so the majority of the teachers there were trained in sheltered English instruction, which is a program that has our grade level classroom teachers, gives them instructional strategies to specifically support multilingual learners in their classrooms. This year, we're continuing that initiative with the sheltered English instruction, expanding it out to an elementary cohort that has teachers from all three schools plus BDS, all three K schools, and then we'll start a secondary cohort over the winter, focusing on grade 7. We've also added additional MLL staffing. Last year, we added a staff member that was shared between WAMS and UES. This year, we added another position that will allow us to open a program to service the students that are at South Valley. So we'll have more information about how that program is going to be implemented as we move forward through the year. And then we're also designating our Title III funding for both after-school tutoring and bringing online additional supplemental ELL resources. And that is my presentation. Any questions?
We have a number or percentage of students that don't sit for the GPA.
A number of
Universe percentage of students that don't, like, are they,
So this
are they
year,
incorporated into the second pathway number?
so we had the graduating class this year was 317, and so we had 315 set for the NJGPA for APLA and 314. So like 2 to 3 students who are not taking that, and that's accounted for in students who had IEPs and already had a designated alternative pathway.
Thanks, Sharon. So what's our trend in terms of the passing the graduations? I saw numbers, are we up, down, sort of stable, like year?
So we've only really had 2 years because the NJGPA has been around for 3 years. The first year, if you remember, I presented, it was a field test and we didn't even get results back. The second year that they did it, it was a field test, but we got data. So we presented that data, even though they could automatically go to that second pathway. And then this year was actually the first year that it fully counted and applied to every rising 12th grader, unless they had an IEP exemption. So if I go back to
Oh, you wanna go back?
Sorry. If you go back to the, yearly comparison for NJGPA,
How far back?
it's, go back to slide, 6, please.
I don't know what slide it is, so. All the way?
Keep going and right there, go back. So the last 2 years are really the data that we have available to us now. So you can see we were at 96.5% in 2023, 96.2%. So, you know, pretty much flat in both ELA and mathematics, 85.2 and 83.1. And this is how we compare to the state kids. So we're still learning, you know, about this test. It wasn't as simple as them just taking questions from the NJ SLA 9 and 10 on those two and putting them together. We're just starting to get some information back, through our supervisors going out for technical assistance with the state, when we get information about the specific kind of standards and the breakdown, like what are the skill sets, but we're not getting that type of, the same type of information that we got when they were taking the NJ SLA, because it's a combining of the two tests. So it's a little more difficult for us to kind of determine exactly what we need to focus on, but we're kind of doing that work, and we're using our in-house benchmark assessments to be more diagnostic to kind of figure that out. So I think, and what we do see that I don't have presented here is that when you look at subgroups, for instance, by level, a lot of the focus is most of our students who are 11th graders at a time are not actually sitting in algebra 1 or geometry. They've had that, you know, in either 8th grade or 9th grade, and they're well past that. Their performance typically is very high. It's our students who are currently sitting in that, and that kind of corresponds to what we saw when they were sitting in the seats and it was an end of year test. So it's the same set of students. So we're kind of working through what that looks like.
Thank you.
I have one more question. Can you remind me, Karen, sorry, before this again, our body and I were just chatting, the difference between NJ GPA and NJ SLA? Yeah.
The state like their yes. So this is the New Jersey graduation proficiency assessment. The NJSLA is the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. So if you go back a little bit in Common Core, was it, you know, and then moved to part testing, and the idea was when a student was taking algebra 1, they would take an end of the year test in algebra 1, geometry, end of the year test in geometry, they went from calling that part to NJSLA, student learning assessment, and it was by content area by grade. There was basically a lawsuit that said that in code, the only requirement for graduation when it came to assessment was that there would be a grade 11 assessment. We used to call it, I don't know, 10 years ago, if anybody remembers that. And so they lost that, the state lost that suit, and they had to go back to a grade 11 assessment only to count for graduation. And so what they did is they took the grade 10 standards in the ELA, and they based this test on that for ELA, and in math, they based it on a collection of algebra 1 and geometry standards, which we don't have a lot of the geometry standards.
This is required for graduation, and NJSLA also tests on science, right?
In 11th grade, yes, that's the other part of it. Yeah. But that is not, the grade 11 science is not a graduation requirement, it is a requirement of each school district to meet their state funding.
Right. Okay. Just move this or a certain portion.
Yes.
For that.
And also for our, that's how they measure our performance in the consent.
Okay, thank you. So understanding there's only the 2 years of data, I was just kind of wondering, out of curiosity, how these numbers might compare to other districts like ours. So then if based on our graduation rate overall. I think it was like 15% or so of the students are pathway 2 or 3. Did I read that correct? Yes. So there's 317 total, and then there was like 37 went to pathway 2, and then so that roughly 15%, is that similar to other districts like ours with the same graduation rate that they have to go to multiple pathways?
Yes, so when you look at our,
Obviously, we're gonna overperform the state, but just I'm thinking other districts like ours.
so other districts like our, and again, these are, conversations that we're having because we're only in the second year. But for those that perform similarly to us, we are, I believe, matching them in terms of that, and the pathways, the pathway 2 and the pathway 3 are the only other pathways that we have. Now, we have a lot of students, and we've talked with Candace here tonight, we've talked about this, many of our students would meet the pathway 2 cut scores for like this SAT. But the state will not allow those to count unless they've already taken the JGPA. So in other words, if our 317 students, we have many students that will meet both sets of requirements, both whatever the cut score is for the JGPA, as well as say the SAT cut score. But what the state has said is that you must first sit and not pass the NJGPA before they will even look at your SAT score or your PSAT score. So that's one of the things that we've looked at is we've said, we don't want this to be the only measure of how our students are doing, how college and career ready they are, especially because we don't have as much information about this test versus we have PSAT and SAT data on our students for like a decade. And that's a much, for us, right, a much better indicator in some ways of how college and career ready our students are. So we track both sets of data, but as a requirement, this is what I have to present to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned cut scores.
Yes.
And I'm way out of the space here, so the NJGPA. I forget what the cut score was,
725.
Is this, I remember reading about the state board of education lower cut score.
Yes.
Is that what this relates to?
It is, so originally, when it was still the NJSLA, Algebra 1, NJSLA Geometry, that they had a higher cut score for math. It was 750, and it was 725 for ELA. Am I getting that right? Or am I switching? They were both 750, but then one came down first. I think it was the ELA came down first to 725 and math stayed at 750. And then there was a period of debate and discussion. And then when they moved to the NJGPA, they came out finally and said that the cut score for both components, ELA and math, was going to be 725.
Okay, so the data that we have over 2 years, that's using 725.
For
Cut
both,
score.
yeah, for both of those years, yeah, so it is comparable.
Okay. Alright, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Dr. Benton. Let's move on to board committee reports. We'll start with communications.
The communications committee will meet on September 18th. I am hoping that between now and that time, we'll have the chance to really determine our role in the communications related to the referendum. I'm also hoping at that meeting we'll establish a process to get our monthly Sun articles back on track. With the first one being articles specific to the referendum. Obviously, in hopes to reach voters who may not be able to attend meetings or who may not be on social media. And I'll report back that after that meeting.
Yeah, there was a Sun article regarding the meeting you attended last Thursday.
Yes.
So Christine did actually put in this article in.
That was great.
That was good stuff.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the Sun. I thought they did a nice job. Summarizing. the last month as it pertains to referendum. So it was very well done in terms of the details. Next up is Ricky.
The curriculum committee did not meet last month, so nothing new to report, but we meet on September 6th.
Moving right along, finance and operations, I know Nick isn't here, but Jack.
Yes. So you'll know Nick wrote this as soon as I start reading. Finance and Operations Committee met via Zoom Friday, August 23rd. In attendance were Nick Weeks, Cheryl McCopolis, Lenny, myself, as well as James Heiser and Joe Bollendorf. And I'll read it as he wrote it. A meeting via Zoom was convened to provide a first look at the demographic study on insights and trends in Morristown's school-age population for the purpose of informing decisions around the referendum. Patrick Gallagher from MP Planning, a firm retained via FBHP Architects, our architectural firm, provided an overview of the current version of the report and took questions from the committee. That report was then disseminated to the rest of the board this evening and will be shared with the community following review by the board. And our next meeting is Monday, September 9th.
Okay, any questions? All right, policy, go ahead.
We also did not meet, our next meeting is 9/11. I think just a reminder, there's a policy on second. Police policy. I think there'll be some discussion and some so close to starting the year, and it's going to be changed, in a timely fashion to reflect the changes in the policy. I think also, just so FYI, we've talked about this, I think the committee is going to continue to look at our cell phone usage and personal defense policy.
Right, great, thanks, yeah, I see some articles about districts changing their policy and rest of it, so. Any questions for Claudine? All right. This is our first public comment section on agenda items. I will save my spiel. Does anybody have any public comment agenda items? Can I get a motion to open? In favor? Can I get a motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any off-board community updates?
Hi, I'm going to be doing the awkward for more arts. I didn't attend the last meeting, but I do have some updates. They have approved a grant for Kayla Johnson to provide some travel scholarship support for the upcoming Madrigals Europe tours. That is exciting. And they're going to be having some really exciting events coming up in the fall. They will be able to that during the September meeting. That's all from our arts. Thank you. So I have SPEAK, Special Education Advocacy Council. It's an organization of the parents and caregivers of students in districts who have or may need an IEP or a 5-year plan. The first meeting of the year will be held on September 12th at 9:30 in the Star Center, which is connected to the high school. Every other meeting is held in the evening at 6:30, also in the Star Center. It's a place that's full of great resources, parents who have shared experiences, and of course, the chance to hear from Dr. Tate, our Director of Special Education Services.
Any other updates? Okay, moving on to reports to the board. And I please get a motion for the approval of items 1 through 5 of section 8 version.
So moved. Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any other abstentions? Thank you. Section 9, recommendations of the superintendent. May I please get a motion for the approval of items 1 through 5 in that section?
So moved. Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Finance and business. May I please get a motion for the approval of items 1 through 13 under the finance and business section?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Before moving on to the next section, I just want to acknowledge what we just approved and accepted were the kind donations from Georgetown Public School for roughly $75 from the UES and Williams field trips. $5,855 from Williams School to purchase a mascot costume for South Alabama. So thank you. As always. Next up, employee relations. May I please get a motion for approval of items 1 through 10 as amended in the addendum that everybody should have. I'm sorry. 1 through 20.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Oh, sorry, roll call.
Mrs. O'Hara Burns,
Yes.
Mrs. Barnes.
Yes.
Mrs. Bowles Matthews.
Yeah.
Dr. Meyer,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks, Mrs. McCollum,
Yes.
Mr. Middleton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Article 10 of our agenda includes suspensions and the superintendent's certificate reports. May I please get any motions for approval of letters A through B of Article 10?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? I am abstaining from letter B because I missed our executive session last or in June when we discussed. Any old business?
Mark, I just want to correct the substance abuse policy balance, I think, because we got feedback from high school, and so they're going to, we'll get a thought about it, then put it on the next agenda.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Any other old business? Any new business? Right, this is our next public comment section. This is for public comment for things that are either on or off the agenda. The ground rules are set forth in the agenda as asked. Keep your comments to roughly 2 minutes. This is not a question and answer session. It's a public comment period. When taking microphone, just say your name and address. Get the motion for favor.
Aye.
Good evening, everyone. It's Doug Maloney, I'm managing Mtps, 141 Pleasant Valley Avenue. I have one brief thing to say about the referendum, which is I'm really excited to see what I can do so far. I feel like the board is doing an excellent job of starting to get information out earlier this time around than previous years, and I very much appreciate it. I'm just as tuned in a parent this year as I was several years ago, and so I just want to commend you on that and look forward to seeing you more. The reason I'm here tonight, what brings me out, is that I'm a parent of some undeniably excellent students, as well as some lower elementary students. And my concern here tonight is about the school district following an already implemented board policy with regard to gifted and talented students. That's policy 2464. Basically, there was a law passed in 2020 called the Strengthening Gifted and Talented Students Act. It was rolled over into S.B. Strauss's board policies, which was then adopted by this board. So that's the standing policy, it is what it is, it says what it says. My concern is that as a district, we're not following that policy. Part of the policy requires the identification of gifted and talented students in grades K through 12. So if you are in your first year in kindergarten, or your last year in 12th grade, or anywhere in between, the district should be having a process in place to identify you. It's required by law and it's in our policy. So if you're a kindergarten in our school district right now, and we are not having a process in place to identify you, that's a problem. If you're a first grader or anyone other outside of the challenge realm of 2nd grade through 6th grade, it's not clear on our website how we're identifying gifted and talented children. We can get into how we define gifted and talented, but currently the district is looking at 2 benchmarks to get in. High math scores in either English or language arts or in math. So 98th or 99th percentile is what gets you in, and then you take a SAGE assessment. That's the information I can find on the website. So another part of my concern about compliance is that all of those criteria not only have to exist, but they have to be published on your website. So outside of the challenge program for grades 2 through 6, a parent in Morristown, new to the district, who says, hey, I'm really impressed with my kids doing, what can they do to get these services? Cannot go on our district website right now and find it. And I think that's a problem that we can easily solve. The other part of the word policy talks about not only identifying these children as gifted and talented students or DNT students, but in the services that we're providing for them as a district. So again, unless you are identified as gifted and talented based on your math or language art or both ability on the math score and then test through stages, we do not consider you gifted and talented in our district. And we do not tell you what services are available to you for your child's educational modifications or enrichment, which is what's required under my understanding, under the law and under board policy. My other concern is that, and one thing the board, I would encourage the board to look at is how we're defining gifted and talented. Because if we're looking solely at math and language art assessments on the math testing, we're not capturing kids gifted in art, music, any other way that they can be gifted. We will not define them as that, and they will not get services under the act. My concern is when we're going on to add those services, our district is, in my opinion, is not doing anything to track the reason we said you were gifted and talented for admission into the program, and tracking that with the services we're providing. So if, for example, you are a gifted and talented student in math, our district is not then following you to give you services particular to your gifts in mathematics. So one of my concerns is that at a certain point, 2021, the school district did away with accelerated enriched and accelerated math placements. So every student was placed in an on-level math class, regardless of ability, and regardless of their status as a gifted and talented student in math. So the concern is, why is the law requiring you to identify kids as gifted and talented, and when you do, you're not tracking that to offer them heightened services in that area? And my concern is that in implementing a policy to abolish the 4th and 5th grade accelerated math curriculum, the law of New Jersey and the school board policy says that the school district had to consult the National Association of Gifted Children's position statements and program recommendations. In there, before we made the change in 2021, it expressly says that children gifted in math need to be differentiated in math. So we knew this before our current policy abolished these enriched math programs in 4th and 5th grade. And what's interesting is if you go on our curriculum right now for math, the math curriculum for 4th and 5th grade does not mention the word gifted, talented, or discuss how the math curriculum in 4th and 5th grade is dealing with gifted and talented students. Conversely, the gifted and talented curriculum for 4th and 5th grade does not mention the word math. So we've taken children in our district, we've identified them however our definition is. Half of those by assumption are based on math, They go into fourth grade and they're placed on level. And there's nothing that's being done for them in fourth grade or fifth grade specific to that. And I've been told that the children who've gotten some type of differentiation in the classroom or whatever else. What's really important about the law and in board policy is it expressly says that the parents of children identified as gifted and talented are supposed to be consulted on the services offered to them. So if we're going to say that the kids get a one-size-fits-all math, despite their gifted and talented status, we need to tell the parents that this is how we're differentiating them in their classroom based on best practices, based on national guidelines. And I feel that as a district, we're not doing that. And I feel we can do better there. My concern about missing kids in K through first, part of that act and part of the policy has required this board to report to the state, the New Jersey Department of Education, coordinator of gifted and talented services starting in 2020. And then every year with the QSAC reporting. Part of that will tell you how many children by grade level the district has identified as gifted and talented. So it should be really easy, and I have over requests to the board secretary, that's outstanding, for those reports since 2020, to determine that if we have goose eggs, zeros, for the number of gifted and talented identified children in kindergarten and first grade, we're not complying with the law, we're not testing them, it's an exposure of our deficit. My big concern in all of this is, as you read through the statements of the gifted and talented, position statement of the National Association of Gifted Children. This is from 2013, so it's nothing new. It's entitled Mandated Services for Gifted and Talented Students. And I quote, it is an unfortunate yet common held belief that gifted students by definition are highly motivated, highly achieving and successful in school. Because many schools do not recognize the need for specialized educational environments and instructional approaches such as acceleration that respond to their advanced learning capabilities and psychosocial needs. Well-resourced schools and districts often assume that they are doing enough for gifted students within their general curriculum. And low-resource schools presume that they have few, if any, gifted students. When budgets are tight, local school districts eliminate or reduce gifted programming, believing that these students will, quote, make it on their own, end quote. As a result of these and other factors, the potential of many gifted children goes unnoticed, while others sit day in and day out in classrooms that stifle their motivation and limit their achievement, end quote. So this isn't new, this is from 2013. And I feel like that is it's tough to say that a student who's gifted and talented, I think it's misconception to think that they will raise themselves up without the support of the board and without support of the district. So the other
excuse me, sir, you're well past the 3 minutes at this point. Just wanted to-
right, I'm the only person here in my life. Continue.
Go ahead.
My other concern is that there's data that's been out for a long time, especially in the area of mathematics, that has said that high ability students placed in high grouped classes perform better than those placed in ungrouped classes. So this has been known for about 25 years and well studied. So I think you have the gist of my concerns here. The policy talks about supporting teachers, supporting resources to develop these programs, and to getting them underway. I do believe that we're an exceptional school district. I do believe that we work hard to try to strive to be the best that we can. I think that this is an area that we can improve on, and I would just like the board to do what it can do to see how to best implement its policies to make sure that we are serving the gifted and talented program. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Well, now let's vote. Can I get a motion for vote comment?
So.
In favor?
Okay, before you go,
Yes.
but just want you to know, gotten, there's like in page 2 before I went into executive.
Do you like a hard copy?
No, you sent it to me, I think, in this attachment one from the. And I'm hoping that all the information that you gave us here is contained within that email.
Yes.
It's already on the agenda, just so you're aware and you've heard, with regards to our curriculum meeting on September 6th. So I appreciate the information and, our ears are open, so thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Correct. Well, we can give you the order.
Meeting correction, abstain from the big report at the last executive session on July 31st. Sorry, I think I approved that. Item 10.
Me as well.
All right. Now you motion to adjourn.
So.
All in favor?
I'm right.